Latest instalment from inside the Lords. I'm actually standing on Westminster Bridge, which seems pertinent for some of the stories I'm going to say today, because one of the things I really wanted to do, and I put in to do, was a private member's question and an urgent question and a topical question. I took every route possible on what had happened in France in terms of the terrible murders and the jihadi terrorist attacks there. And I was calling on Her Majesty's government to ask or to state their solidarity with President Macron in terms of his restatement of Enlightenment values and standing up for freedom and standing up against those people who were bullying him and basically bullying France. When I say bullying, it's a silly word, but actually threatening them that if they dared do something blasphemous, according to the particular critics, that they would be under threat. And then people like President Trudeau, other presidents like Imran Khan from Pakistan, effectively saying that there is no right to be offensive, and if you insist on your muscular secularism and being offensive, you'll get what's coming to you. So I put this question in thinking it was important that Her Majesty's government did this, and the first question I got was, is there any evidence of why this is topical or urgent? Which was, anyway, I gave them the evidence in a written form and was duly convinced that I'd given them enough to show how important it was, and I simply got this is not considered to be relevant, so I didn't get my question. And I think that says something about the resounding silence in this country on this issue. When George Floyd was brutally killed in America, it was absolutely right that there was international outrage. I felt it. I went on those early Black Lives Matters demos, even though they were maybe corrupted later on and politicised in the wrong way. But I thought it was right that one man's death would create this. Well, Samuel Paty dies, murdered, beheaded, 3 people savagely attacked in a church, and we don't say very much at all. Resounding silence. I don't believe in the slogan, silence is violence, but silence is certainly telling in this instance. So, that's my little gripe of the day. I've got another gripe, but I thought I'd explain why. So yesterday I put in to do 3 questions and the way, or 3 speeches, and the way it works is that you go to the Whip's office and you say, I'd like to speak on these issues. I thought I was very chuffed with myself, putting myself in to do 3. I spoke on none. So I put in to speak on a question, as a supplementary question on qualifications for non-academic subjects, for vocational subjects. I was very keen to do that and talk about apprenticeships, FE, and the impending youth unemployment crisis, but I wasn't selected, fair enough. I put in to speak on coronavirus, I wasn't selected, fair enough. You can't complain, that's the process. I'm also an independent, so therefore I haven't got anyone batting for my side, I've not got a party. But I did get put down to ask a supplementary question to an important question put by Daniel Moylan on where was the evidence that you should ban collective worship in churches in relation to lockdown, and my name was there. So I was all ready with my speech, even though I'd written 3 speeches for my 3. I was all ready to speak, and they got to my name and then they said the time has elapsed for this question, so I didn't get to speak. So I didn't have a very successful day. But it reminded me of something else, which was I was thinking, I haven't spoken, it's not fair. And then you think that's a ridiculously immature response. But actually the debates were interesting. So the debate on the collective worship was one of the best I've heard. It was only 15 minutes. It's also the case that there was another important question put forward on citizenship exams for new people becoming citizens in the UK, which Joan Bakewell, remember her? Baroness Bakewell, I'd almost forgotten, asked the question, and there were some hilariously funny responses because everybody done the test for British citizenship and failed it abysmally. So I thought that was an important question, well asked, good responses, and I'm telling you this, but you can find out for yourself. So I'm here to recommend to you, would you believe, Parliament Live TV, look at the Lords. When I was in Brussels and in Strasbourg, a lot of people who'd voted for the Brexit Party started watching the proceedings in the European Parliament. They could see for themselves what was happening. And as far as I'm concerned, it's always good to know... Sorry. It's blocked. Okay, sorry about that. Citizen Action, they tried to get through, but actually it's blocked. Not because of us. I think actually it might be an anti-terrorism measure, which is pertinent to what I was saying earlier. But anyway, where was I? Right. So I was saying that many of the people who voted for the Brexit Party started to watch the European Parliament live, and it amused me because it was hardly riveting TV, but I understood that in a way it was a kind of democratic access point. You know, people were able to see for themselves. And I think that people now sometimes watch Parliament live in the House of Commons and so on, perfectly appropriately. Anyway, I would never have dreamt of watching the House of Lords in normal times, and I'm not suggesting that you watch it because it's so important, but in a way it gives you a flavour of that place. And of course, it's not just a talking shop. This is actually a legislative body, as we know, not elected, undemocratic, and I say that as somebody who's there, and I understand that irony, but where decisions are taken that will affect your lives. You know, they do actually make the government sometimes think again, and I think that that's a mixed blessing, to say the least, because sometimes some legislation is badly worded, and at a technical level it's fine to have the law lords there pointing that out, but when they actually try and politically challenge what an elected government have done, we're actually talking a real affront to democracy. So let me recommend a couple of debates. Tonight there is an emergency debate on the new lockdown legislation. It's a 4-hour debate. I should be speaking. I think they take everyone who's listed, and I'm listed. I'll get 2 or 3 minutes. It's very heated in the House of Lords. There's probably more opposition to lockdown from certain ranks, of course not from Labour, not from Lib Dem, who are more pro-lockdown than the Tories. But there are amendments of regret and to send it back to the Lords, and I think you should watch it. It's from 5 till 10, or dip in or keep your eye on it. And then on Monday there is a major debate, an important debate, that relates to Clause 5 of the Internal Markets Bill, which is going to have a big impact on the Brexit situation. And Clause 5 is the one in which everybody who is opposed to Brexit says this is an affront to international law, and then people like me will be saying, yes, but domestic law and domestic popular democracy, sovereignty, demands that we actually do what we need to do in order to leave the European Union without compromising the integrity of the United Kingdom. So watch that as well. That's going to be on Monday afternoon. Keep your eye on it. Keep us to account. You know, make sure that you know who is saying what, where the influence is. My, in a way, final dilemma, democratic dilemma, is on Monday, even though I have great reservations about the withdrawal agreement, and you know, as somebody who stood for the Brexit Party, you know, we're very critical of that agreement, and lots of Brexiteers know that it was kind of May's deal dressed up by Boris, but with all sorts of problems. But I will be voting with the government in that instance, not because I'm a Tory, but because I think democratically it sees through Brexit is an important part of the Brexit situation. So I'll be voting with the Tories. Tonight, I will be voting against the government in the lockdown legislation. Is this hypocrisy? I'll leave you to answer that, because I'm not elected. Who am I to vote against the government when it is an elected power? Even though I absolutely loathe this lockdown and think it's an affront to freedom and is the wrong strategy in terms of dealing with the pandemic and how we live in relation to the virus. Should I vote at all? Should I vote with the government to be democratic? I've wrestled with this in the dark night of the soul, and because actually they're just advisory amendments, I don't feel it will actually stop anything. I see it as an opportunity to both make the arguments in the public sphere for the public, for you, about lockdown and what its problems are and why we should defend freedom, and also to just indicate my vote as opposed to the government. But that's the kind of, I suppose, dilemma that I've never had to worry about in my life before. But that's what it's like being an outsider inside the Lords. So tune in next week for next week's instalment.